Hello there, my name is Michael Grant, Design and Manufacturing Services Manager with Applied CAX, and today I'm going to go through Extrude feature, and so I'm going to create a new part for Extrude. We'll call it the Extrude part. And I'm going to go ahead and add a datum because one of the things I want to demonstrate is how using a datum for driving the height of your extrude can be a very good reference feature because it's stable, it doesn't change. If you were to delete and recreate your sketch, it can be driven from an expression. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a datum. I'm going to use F2 to name the datum. I'm just going to call it top face. You don't have to underscore, but I'm used to it. And then we're going to go ahead and create an expression. And I'm going to create a new expression group and call it input. And make that group active, and we'll call this top face height. And then we'll just say, I don't know, 150. And as I start to type that, now it'll go in there. I don't think we can get the dimension to show, but you can see the dimension under here. So you can change it there by double clicking, or actually because it's an expression you can't, but you can change it here at the top, so under user expressions. And so we have that. Now I want to create something before it, so I'm going to roll back. So here we've got the current feature. So if I click there, now it's like that top face never existed, and I could create a sketch. Now I'm going to attach that sketch to the top datum that's already there, so it's nice and stable. And I'm going to draw a centering rectangle. In this case, I'm not dimensioning it. We're not doing sketch practice here. And I don't know, we'll call it, we could call it base extrude sketch. Or because it's already identified as a sketch, I'll just call it base extrude, just showing kind of the naming. Now, the extrude feature, well, let's just go and pick it here up on the toolbar. You can see that it's calling out. You also have a shortcut key, X, but we'll just pick the extrude feature, and it's going to default to infer curves, and so I'm going to leave it on that just to demonstrate something. It picks up a vector, probably from that bottom datum, and then from there we could tie this to that same expression, but I wanted to show how to make it relative to the datum. So I'm just going to say OK for now, roll forward so that we can now see that datum, and I'll go back into the extrude, and on the end value I'm going to say until selected, and then pick. Sorry, I actually need to put that datum, so I couldn't pick it because it was after it. And I'm just not going to even hide any mistakes I make, because I would like you to see how I resolve those. And so let me go through that a little slower. So if I double click this extrude, you can see it's making that active, and so that is my current feature. That datum is in the future, and so I can't pick it. And so when I notice that, I'm closing the extrude and just dragging it and dropping it before the extrude. And so now we can go into our double click the extrude, pick the value, and say until selected. Now, because this is a datum that is a plane that goes forever, infinity in all directions, well, in the directions of that plane, I don't have to say until extended. But let's say I'll just throw a quick sketch here before it. This time we'll do a circle. Now it's picking up other points because we have like poles, point on curve, and so it was seeing this as a curve, and so now it'll be a little easier for me just to pick that datum point. And so that point is being picked up, well, in this case from the sketch, but this main datum here also has a point built into it, and so if that was showing, I could pick that up too. And so that would be a good thing to test out too. Okay, so let's say we extrude that, and we're just using fur again. Or actually on this one, let's use single curve because it is a single curve. And we'll just drag that up some height, and so I'm just grabbing that and dragging it up. Now when I roll down to this base extrude, let's say I wanted to terminate on that instead of the plane. So I'm going to say repick in this box here to select something other than the plane and pick this top face. Now you can see I get an error because this face here is terminated, it's trimmed. It's trimmed by the sketch, and so it doesn't roll out forever. And so instead of until selected in that case, I would have to say until extended, and so it's automatically extending that face. Now this isn't necessarily recommended, but I want you to understand, all the different ways that you can control an extrude. The reason this isn't recommended is because if I, well, let's go ahead and give it, I'll show you a good case of that. So let's say, I come back here and edit that circle. I delete it, whoops, delete it, and I decide I want a rectangle instead. Still smaller, so it still needs until extended. So now it's broken, and I'd have to investigate why it's broken. And so that's the reason that we would use a datum instead. And so there's ways. So let's say let's put this other one back to the datum. So we'll say until selected, and I'll just go to wireframe view. Whoops, not that wireframe. I actually like, well, we could just pick the datum from the feature tree. And so now we're doing the datum again. And then with this other extrude, one way we could control it is to say offset from a selected, and we could pick that datum again, and maybe not 320 offset, but now you can see, we have something controlled. If I was to go and adjust that expression, everything's adjusting, it's very stable. If I was to go and delete this original sketch, so I'll just do a window pick because it's just going to pick what's in the sketch, and I say, you know, I want a circle, and I don't want to go through the whole replacement because I know that this will work, so I'm not going to review my selections, and it still works, still extruding to the right height. Now let's say I did the same thing with the circle. You know, I'm just experimenting, you know, getting to the product design. It's still back. So you could set these defaults. I've decided I want a rectangle again. So in this case, actually, that didn't work because now I'm kind of surprised this one worked. It switched to feature curves. I was going to say, that's interesting. So there's been an update made, which is smart. So inferred, let me make a better point of this. Let's roll back. Okay, so we're going to go to this extrude. We have the curves, and so you can see it says feature, but we had picked infer. Well, there was a release, or there's certain releases where this wouldn't have switched to feature. So instead of picking infer, you know, often I'm going to show one that does break, so I'm going to pick connected curves, and in order to do this I'm going to hold shift to unselect and then reselect. So those are connected. It picks all of them in one. And so now if I change this back to a circle, it's broken. So it's because it was looking at curve IDs instead of the feature curves. So feature curves is recommended, and so that's something I wanted to show. And so the feature curves is not looking at the IDs in the background. Each of these curves has an ID, you know, curve 1, curve 2. Feature curves isn't looking at it that way. It's basically saying this sketch is a feature, grab everything that's in it no matter what it is. And so in that case, that's when we can make major changes and change every curve in the sketch, and we don't need to review it. The feature just works. And so same with this, we picked single curve on this other sketch. So if we change this, it will also break. And so it's broken. But we can fix it. We can say, hey, there's better ways to select that. This time I'm going to say feature curves. I'm going to pick those. You could pick them in the window or from the tree. And that might be why the other ones changed. If you have an extrude, like you're modifying this extrude and you pick from here, it normally will flip to feature curves. Okay, so now we have that we've made this extrude form more robust, and it should work with the delete of every curve inside of it and a recreation. And so now it works, the heights work, and we have two different extrudes. At this time, we're extruding a solid feature, and we're not doing any Boolean. Now Boolean is like, you know, none, unite, subtract, intersect, inferred. Well, in this case, this particular extrude is our first extrude. There's nothing really it could unite with or extract from. You could decide that you want it to be a sheet instead of a solid. That's one change you could make, and so that that would make it a thin sheet that's not an enclosed solid. And so if I flip it back to solid, it's now a solid, and it looks like the order of these did change. I must have done that without knowing it. Oh, I did it because we wanted one to be relative to the other. We've changed that now. And so let's say, you know, with this boss, I don't know, even though the height offset we have, let's do unite. Actually, that'd be a good one to do. And so instead of two bodies, right now, if we were to exit that and say solid body, we have two bodies. Another way to look at that is while you're in this window, right click, turn off timestamp, and you can see you have two bodies. This can be a handy way to look at multi-body and the features attached with those different bodies. So flipping back to timestamp, I'm going to say that this is united with the other one. So I'm going to say unite, and it'll see the other body that it's already intersecting with and say, do you want to unite with this one? And in this case, I'm going to say yes. And so now as we pick solid body, it's one body. Now, one thing I wanted to show, I don't know if it's, I wanted to show you don't have to have sketches. Let's say, with this base sketch, I'm just going to throw out a scenario. Let's say you wanted something robust that wouldn't break, but it wasn't a sketch. Because sometimes sketches are a little bit more involved to make, more timely than maybe an offset curve. And so in this case, I'm going to do an offset curve. Let's say that we wanted to offset it out. And this is, I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit, but let's say this was a slip fit. In this case, 10 millimeter offset is not a slip fit, but it will be easier to see. Sorry, I'm going to go back into that and make sure we are on feature curves. And so I'm going to say offset, and then we're going to extrude that. And I want it to, let's see if this flips when I pick. It's still on single curve, so I do not want that. So I'm going to hold shift and unselect and then change it to feature curves. So now we've got that. Let's say I wanted to show some different commands we have. So we have single-sided offset and then two-sided offset. Let's do this after the others though, like maybe after this one. And so I'm going to go into extrude again, make sure it's on feature curve, pick the offset, and then I'm going to say none because I don't want to combine it. And then I'm going to say the two-sided offset again. And so this is where, a little bit interesting way to do this, but you're picking the wall thickness, and then you're picking the start. And so in this case, we already have the offset built into the offset curve, and so I'm just going to leave that at 0. If we had maybe used, we'll try it again with the same sketch. So I'll show both ways, but I'm sorry, let me back up. You could pick the same curve as the initial sketch and then just offset it with your start. But again, I wanted to show that you can have offset curves and quickly have curves that aren't sketches and they're still robust and that you can design with. And so let's, maybe we want this to end at the plane, so we're going to say the top value is until selected, it's that same datum plane, and then we're solid. So there's that, and then we have, so we'll call this our sleeve, and then we're going to call this one our boss. So let's say we wanted to change our base again to let's go back to a rectangle. We're just really confused. We don't know what shape we want to create, and so we're just going to keep changing our mind. But you can see there that we still have our offset curve. It's still working. it's not a sketch, it's robust, and so it's just showing there's other ways you can extrude. Extrude, it's a little different than like a SolidWorks. You can cut, you can extrude, you can unite. So in SolidWorks you might have like a cut and an extrude. I believe those are the right names. It's been a while. But and then I believe you have to have a sketch. So you can, if I was to add another extrude, you can even say I want face edges, and now you've got a new extrude. So it can be face edges. It can be, and when we do that again, we can do a sheet. And so it's very powerful. Even your offset curve can be, let's say this sleeve, you wanted it, one of the disadvantages to sketches is it takes a little more work to move them around to different planes. Whereas maybe with an offset curve, I could name this, I could hit F2 and name it reference. And then I could go into curves and say project curve, pick that offset curve as a feature, and then project it to this plane. And then I can say what vector. And so now I have an offset curve at that level. And so if I roll all the way down to the sleeve, and then I just repoint it to a different set of curves, and maybe we change the direction. Oh, I see. Because we're still, it wasn't the direction. I don't know. For some reason you want to come from the top down, and in this case, or maybe you want it to be, if we had done maybe an offset plane. So let's say we had an offset plane that's 75, and we go back, let's call this offset phase, and we go back to the intent of the boss, and we tie it to, instead of an offset distance, we tie it to that plane. I see a good use for anyway. I'm just showing flexibility. Some of what I'm showing won't make sense, but now we could say this projected curve is starting from, is projecting to this plane, and because it's starting above, it will now work, even if the direction's wrong, because I've told it where to start and where to end. And so now for some reason we have a floating sleeve. But this projected curve gives you a lot of flexibility because you can move it around. Of course you can do that with a sketch. One thing I'd like to see is how well we've tied all of this to the main datum. I normally don't move this datum. I would leave it and maybe hide it and then use an alternate datum, because I like to have one CSIS or datum that represents the absolute 000 frame, even if my product or whatever I'm designing isn't going to be there. But just to show, relations, let's see if our sketches are related to this datum if we move it. So one of them was, but the rest weren't. And so I can undo that. I could go back and say reattach. And so now I'm inside the sketch redefining, you know, what it's related to. I'm going to say, specify point, switch it to existing, go into point dialog because I find it easier to attach something to when it's in this command. And so I'm going to go existing point and just kind of I think it's because it's hidden, but if I delay pick here, or even just pick the datum, well, there we go. Oh, I know why. We have don't pick through hidden. So you can say that's the origin of the datum. So I'm going to pick that and say OK. And then I'm going to check my other sketch. So check that all of my sketches are built that way. I really only have 2, so I'm going to go check this one. It already was. Yeah, so it's already on existing point. And this just shows you have flexibility to locating, you know, a bunch of features if you reference correctly to a base, like a stable. You know, so that means everything is pointing back. You know, if I pick this sketch, it's pointing back to that datum. If I pick this sketch, you can see it through the highlighting, but you can also see it that this datum is showing that all of these are children, and that means I could even move it up. You know, I saw that the offset datum was set. Okay, I guess one of them isn't. So that would be the beginning of this sketch. So we can go in and double check that and say reattach. And so it was new plane. We'll go in. Let's use inferred. And pick that plane. What I'm looking for is, well, we'll check it out. We'll try inferred is the associativity icon or selection. Yeah, so that, inferred worked. And so now we have a lot of flexibility. We can even just go into this datum and say, oh, I want it back at absolute 0. So you can see that the reference is absolute. And I'm just going to tab through and type 000, and now that feature's back to 000. And so that doesn't, you know, necessarily demonstrate everything about Extrude, but that covers a lot. If we were to open it, we've covered the Boolean, the start and stop. Now, start can, you know, you have a value, so you can say a minus value. And if I go at, oh, what was I in here? If I go into a sketch, sorry, that was an extrude. Okay, this extrude here. Somehow, for some reason, I couldn't see it, but let's put a minus value of like 100. Yeah, there we go. And so now you can have a minus value into your extrude. That's another feature I didn't, or something I didn't cover. If you're in sheet body, it doesn't necessarily have to be enclosed. I don't use this command very often, but you can kind of see the intent of it, which is pretty cool. But it also means, you know, the stability of that methodology potentially isn't going to be great, because if your faces change, it'd be interesting to see. I might throw something together on that. Draft, you do have a draft command, so you can see that it's drafting in. You can draft out. You can say from a section and just pick where, so it could be a datum or something. Offset, we did see you could do single-sided, two-sided, symmetric. solid sheet. And so that pretty much oh, vector. Yeah, vector is not something I covered. So in this case, it's saying normal to the main face, I believe, or maybe it's picking it up since yeah, we could try that out. I think it's picking it up from the plane, but you have all kinds of options on the vector. So if I wanted to show, let's look at whether that's working. If I go into the main datum, let's tilt it a little bit. Yeah, and so everything, everything except for that one extrude, and so we can look at that. Probably because it didn't come from a sketch, but something easy to fix. So the vector was just fixed. But we started this sketch from this top, and so we could say same thing. We could pick this face, and now it should be, oh, I see, the projection. See, the projection was fixed. So this stuff's pretty easy to roll through and fix. So the projection is fixed. We could pick a face, and in that case pick number 1, and I could have done that even with all of them. Probably best to pick your oldest feature. In this case, this would be this cesis. Roll them all back to the same. So if they break, you just have to fix one, or you know what to fix it to, and you don't have to investigate much. So let's project vector. Oh, okay, it is on that one. The extrude vector, making sure it's on that one. This one here, it's on that, so we could change that and say nope, I want it down here, so it's all on the same. And the last one is this one, it's already on the base feature. And so there you go, we can even tilt things now. A little harder to untilt. I guess you can get it from the inferred because it's looking at the absolute still. And so there you go. We're back to, if I look at it, just planar to, this is always, this doesn't move, this is relative to absolute. That's it. Alright, well thank you very much.